I thought I was alone at that dead gas station. Then the pump clicked, and I saw it had no hose. I should have kept driving. It was just past 2 a.m., somewhere in western Nebraska, one of those long, nothing stretches of Route 30 where the world feels like it's forgotten how to be alive. No lights. No cars. Just darkness pressing in from every direction. But I'd been on the road for 9 hours straight, eyelids heavier with every blink. I wasn't falling asleep, yet, but I knew that feeling. The tunnel vision. The twitchy thoughts. The way your brain starts slipping sideways. It wasn't safe. So when I spotted a rusted blue gas station sign jutting out of the weeds, no name, no prices, just a chipped canopy and 2 old pumps, I figured it'd do. One of those long-abandoned service stations you pass without a second thought. The kind that probably hadn't pumped gas since the 90s. Perfect place for a breather. I pulled in under the canopy. Killed the engine. The silence was immediate, thick and unnatural, like the sound had been vacuumed out of the air. Even the wind felt like it was holding its breath. There were 2 pumps, both bleached gray from sun and time. The display screens were broken. No card reader, no keypad, no digital anything. Just analog dials under dusty plastic. I got out, stretched my arms, rolled my neck. Then I noticed something odd about the second pump. It was missing the hose. The nozzle cradle was empty. No dangling line. Just a snapped bracket and frayed rubber, like it had been torn off. Whatever. I wasn't here for gas. I walked around the lot a little, shaking the numbness from my legs, trying to stay alert. Off to the side, the old station building loomed like a mausoleum, windows dark, glass mostly intact but smeared with grime. Then, without warning, I heard it. Click. I stopped cold. It came from behind me. From the pump. The same one without a hose. I turned, heart thumping. The display on the pump had changed. The analog dial, faded numbers behind plastic, was moving. Slowly ticking upward. 3 cents. 4. 5. But there was no hose. No connection. No vehicle. I just stood there, stunned. Then came a second sound, barely audible, like fabric shifting behind glass. I looked toward the building. The front door was boarded, but the side window wasn't. I crept over, hands shaking, and peered through a smear on the pane. Inside, shadows. Empty shelves. A few toppled racks. What looked like an old coffee machine collapsed on the floor. And in the back, half obscured by darkness, something was hanging on the wall. A uniform. Bright red. Oil-stained. The old Shell logo still visible on the breast pocket. I backed away. Then the pump clicked again. Louder this time. Harder. The price was frozen at $6.66. I don't believe in signs, but that one felt personal. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw the writing. It hadn't been there before. On the side of the pump, smeared in something dark, scrawled in jagged loops. Still pumping. Still watching. My chest locked up. No wind. No footsteps. No sound. But I knew someone was here. I fumbled for my keys, got in the car, and locked the doors with shaking fingers. My headlights illuminated the pumps, one whole, one gutted, and for a moment I swore I saw someone standing behind them. But when I blinked, nothing. I backed out fast. Tires kicking gravel, heart jackhammering. I didn't stop again until I hit a truck stop an hour later, bright as a stadium, alive with people. I told myself it was a hallucination. Just exhaustion. Road stress. A tired brain seeing what it wanted to see. But that number, $6.66. When I checked my car's trip meter later that morning, my odometer had turned over 666.6 miles exactly when I'd pulled in. That gas station wasn't just abandoned. It was waiting. I couldn't sleep after that night. Not really. Even after I made it to Fort Collins, safe, showered, surrounded by people and noise, I kept seeing that pump. The analog dial clicking upward. the smeared writing on the side. I told myself it had to be exhaustion or a stress-induced hallucination, but the pit in my stomach said otherwise. So 5 days later, I drove back. Same route, same lonely highway through the nothing. I told my cousin I was taking a scenic detour. He warned me about deer and flat tires. I nodded like I wasn't heading straight for the last place I ever wanted to see again. When I got there, I almost slammed the brakes too late. The gas station was still there, but different. The pumps were gone. Not removed. Not taped off. Gone. As if they'd never existed. The concrete beneath the canopy was smooth, unbroken, and clean. No oil stains, no bolt holes, no signs that anything had ever been mounted there. My heart stuttered. I parked, got out, and walked slowly beneath the rusting canopy. The building was still boarded, the windows still grimy. But something had changed there too. The side window, the one I'd looked through? It had been smashed. Fresh shards glinted beneath it. The inside looked darker now, like someone had moved things. Or taken something. I almost turned back. Almost got in my car and left it behind for good. But I needed closure. I circled around to the back of the building. The weeds were knee-high, the path overgrown. A metal door stood halfway ajar, its hinges warped and red with rust. I pushed it open. The smell hit first. Not rot. Not mold. Something worse, chemical, like old gasoline soaked into the walls. Inside, it looked like a maintenance room. Yellowed safety posters peeled from the walls. A cracked utility sink. And scattered across the floor, under broken shelves, were dozens of faded slips of paper. Receipts. Gas station receipts. All for amounts like $6.66. $6.66. $6.66. Every single one. I picked one up. The name printed at the top? Blue Canopy Service, EST 1987. There was no address. No phone number. Just that name. And the timestamp? It was from 5 nights ago. 2:13 a.m. That was the exact time I'd stopped here. And next to the date, barely legible, was a line for Vehicle ID. Handwritten in shaky black ink. Silver Accord, New York plates. That was my car. That's when I ran. I shoved through the door, out into the weeds, heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. I fumbled with my keys and got into the car fast. Locked the doors. Started the engine. I didn't look back. But I didn't drive off just yet. Because taped to my windshield, from the inside, was something new. Another receipt. Same station name. Same time. Same total, $6.66. But this one had a message scribbled across it in oil black letters. Next time, you pay in person. I peeled out of there so fast my tires kicked gravel halfway to Kansas. I didn't stop until I hit a real gas station an hour away, full of people, noise, and actual working lights. I never told my cousin the truth. I told him I hit traffic. I don't know what Blue Canopy was, or who or what ran it. I don't believe in curses or ghosts. But that station? It wasn't right. It isn't right. And if you're ever out that way, and you see a sagging blue canopy rising out of the weeds like a mirage, don't stop. No matter how tired you are. Because whatever's there isn't running on fuel. It's running on memory. And you might already be in its system. She said it was the only open station for miles. I didn't know I was being locked in. I didn't plan to stop. Honestly, I wasn't even supposed to be driving that stretch of road. A last-minute detour, courtesy of construction, had dumped me onto some winding back route skirting the Delaware River. No streetlights, no signs, just my GPS blinking uselessly and a rising sense that I'd taken a wrong turn in the dark. I was about an hour north of Philly, somewhere between farm country and forest when the gas light came on. Not blinking. Solid. The kind of warning you don't ignore. I was low, really low. I'd pushed it too far, assuming there'd be a Wawa or something just up ahead. There wasn't. For 20 straight minutes, I saw nothing. Not a house, not a car, not even a working phone signal. Just cold trees clawing at the sky and a winding two-lane road that kept tightening, narrowing, like it was trying to squeeze me out. That's when I saw her. She stood under a flickering LED light beside a rust-colored fuel pump. One of those old-school ones with big plastic numbers. The kind you only see in movies or rural horror stories. There was a building behind her, a single-story brick structure, windows dark. Service painted in block letters across the roof. No brand. No logo. No other cars. She was smoking. Blonde. Maybe 50. Her eyes followed me as I rolled in, gravel crunching under my tires. I rolled down my window a crack. "You're open?" She smiled, thin, stiff. "Only stationed for miles. You're lucky I'm still here." Something about her voice made my stomach pull tight, but I nodded anyway. Desperation overrides instinct when your tank's bone dry in the middle of nowhere. She pointed toward pump 3. "Cash inside. Pumps are manual." I parked, shut the engine, and stepped out. The pump looked ancient. Like a museum piece. I tried lifting the handle. Nothing. A faded sign above it read, "Activate inside." Fine. I headed toward the building. The door buzzed when I pushed it open, and a dull chime echoed inside. The air smelled like stale coffee and rubber. The lights were dim. One flickered overhead. The counter was old formica. A yellowed radio sat on the shelf behind it, hissing static. No music. No talking. Just white noise. She came in behind me, moving quietly, and stepped behind the counter. $20, I said, pulling out cash. She took it with slow fingers and dropped it into a drawer I couldn't see. Then she reached under the counter and hit something. A loud metallic clunk echoed from outside. "You're good," she said. "Pump'll work now." I thanked her, turned toward the door, and pushed. It didn't open. I tried again, harder. Still locked. I turned. She was just standing there. Staring. Can you unlock it?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course." She walked slowly toward the counter again, ducked out of view. And that's when I heard it. Click. But not from the door. From behind me. I turned, and the light in the ceiling shifted, revealing a camera. Small. Mounted above the doorway. Tracking. The door didn't unlock. Instead, I heard a second sound outside. A second engine. I ran to the window. Another car was pulling into the lot. Black. No plates. And then I realized what was happening. I hadn't stopped to get gas. I'd stopped to be chosen. The black car idled in front of the pumps. No headlights. No driver getting out. I backed away from the window, trying to stay low. The woman behind the counter hadn't moved. She was still standing there, calm as ever, her hands folded neatly like she was waiting for a dentist appointment. I tried the door again. Useless. Some kind of mechanical lock held it fast. "Let me out," I snapped. My voice was rising, too loud in the dead air. Her eyes didn't even flinch. "You'll be fine," she said, like she was telling a toddler their scraped knee would stop bleeding. "He just needs your car." "What the hell does that mean?" But she didn't answer. She stepped into the back room instead, letting the door swing slowly shut behind her. I was alone. I scanned the room. One exit. No weapons. No phone. The radio hissed in the corner, playing static like it was covering something up. Behind the counter, I spotted an old set of keys hanging from a nail and a pair of bolt cutters on the floor beneath them. I vaulted the counter and grabbed both. Outside, the black car's driver door opened. A tall man stepped out, maybe 6'5", wearing a puffy gray jacket and jeans soaked at the hems. He walked with a limp, dragging his left foot just slightly. He moved toward my car. I didn't wait. I jammed the key into the lock and twisted. Nothing. I tried the second key. Click. The door creaked open, setting off a faint door chime, the same sound I'd heard when I entered. I realized then, the lock was never about keeping people out. It was about keeping them in. I stepped out onto the gravel, staying low behind the gas pumps. The man hadn't seen me yet. He had one hand inside his jacket. I didn't want to find out what was in the other. I darted around the side of the building and into the darkness. Branches slapped at my face as I dove into the woods behind the station. I didn't know where I was going. I just ran. Footsteps followed. Heavy. Slow. Steady. I veered down a shallow ravine and ducked behind a fallen log. My hands trembled around the bolt cutters. My breath felt too loud. Then, closer than I expected, his voice. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Calm. Even. Like this was a job." He didn't yell. He didn't curse. Just talked, like he'd done this before. I stayed frozen. He passed within 10 feet of me. I waited. Counted to 60. Then I bolted in the opposite direction, crashing through the underbrush until I saw it. A bridge. Old. Wooden. Single lane. No signs. No rails. I ran for it. And then I saw headlights. A truck coming fast. I waved my arms like a maniac, stumbling out of the trees. The truck skidded to a halt. The driver opened his door, a flashlight raised. "You okay?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed behind me. He helped me into the cab and locked the doors. When I finally caught my breath, I managed to say, "Gas station. Trap. Someone's there." He didn't ask questions. Just drove. We didn't stop until we hit a real town with real cops. They took my statement. Drove out to the station. But when they came back, they said it had been closed for years. Doors boarded. No woman. No pump. No working locks. Just a crumbling building off a dead-end service road. They didn't believe me. Not really. I could see it in their faces. But I still had the bolt cutters. And the receipt. It was in my pocket. Crumpled, oil-stained. One line. No logo. No price. Just 2 words, printed across the top in faded red ink. Last stop. I never found out who that man was. Or how many others they'd done this to. But every time I pass an old service station now, I keep driving. I don't care how low the tank gets. Because sometimes, the only thing they're pumping is people. My phone had full bars. But every number I dialed connected me to the same voice: "Don't try to leave." I'd been driving 16 hours straight by the time I pulled off for gas. I was somewhere in northern Arizona, cutting across endless desert on my way to California. My eyes were dry. My thoughts fuzzed at the edges. I needed fuel, food, and 5 minutes away from the wheel. The road had been dead for hours. No signs, no cars, no signs of life, until I saw the glowing orange price board hanging crooked above a single old station. It looked empty, but the lights were on. One flickered above the entrance. The others buzzed low, throwing a pale orange haze over 2 battered pumps and a cracked parking lot. I coasted in, relieved. The tank was nearly empty. There was one car, an old beige sedan, parked along the side of the building. No one inside. The windows were fogged. The pumps didn't seem modern. Analog numbers. No card reader. I stepped out. Cold air hit me like a slap, colder than it should have been for that time of year. I zipped up my hoodie and tried the pump. Nothing. A handwritten note taped to the glass read: "Pay first. Cash only." Of course. I walked into the station. The door rang a bell, rail metal, not digital. The inside smelled like dust and old jerky. Shelves mostly bare. A couple rows of canned beans and motor oil. A tiny fridge buzzing loud in the back. Behind the counter sat a man in a red flannel shirt. Mid-60s maybe. Skin like old leather. He looked up once, then back down to his newspaper. "20 on pump 1? I asked. He didn't answer. just slid the drawer open and held out his hand. I passed him the bill. He pressed a button under the counter. I heard a click behind me. The pump was active. I thanked him. He didn't respond. Something felt off. Not in a horror movie way, just wrong. Like I was interrupting something that shouldn't have been disturbed. Outside, I filled the tank. The wind picked up. There was no traffic. Not a single car passed the whole time I was there. When the tank clicked full, I slid the nozzle back and got into my car. I checked my phone. Full bars. Weird. I hadn't had signal in hours. Out of habit, I called my brother. It rang once, and then someone answered. But it wasn't him. Not even close. A woman's voice, calm, controlled. "You shouldn't be here." My stomach dropped. "Who is this?" She didn't answer. So I hung up and called again. Same voice. Same tone. "You need to leave. Now. But don't use the main road." I threw the phone into the passenger seat. Must have been a screw-up. A glitch. Maybe I tapped the wrong contact. I tried again, this time dialing my best friend manually. Same voice. "This time," she said, "you don't have much time." I looked up. The old man from inside was standing at the window now. Staring. Expression blank. He wasn't blinking. And behind him, in the reflection, I saw movement. Something small. Fast. Crawling along the ceiling. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine didn't start. Again. Nothing. I looked back at the station. The man had disappeared. So had the reflection. But the front door was still open. The bell above it had stopped ringing. And I realized I never heard it chime when he walked out. Because he hadn't walked out, I yanked open the glove box, fingers shaking, and grabbed the flashlight I keep there for emergencies. Clicked it on. Swung the beam toward the station door. Empty. The front of the store was completely still. No sign of the old man. No movement. Nothing crawling across the ceiling anymore. I tried the engine again. Just clicks. Battery? Dead. I popped the hood and got out, every nerve screaming at me to not turn my back on the building. I lifted the hood. Everything looked fine. No loose cables, no obvious issues. But I'm no mechanic. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for a tow, still convincing myself this was all normal. Coincidence, stress, maybe a bad dream I hadn't fully woken from. I pulled up the screen. Full bars. LT. Everything looked perfect. I dialed 911. Ring. Once. Twice. Then that voice again, calm. Slightly amused now. "You were warned." I hung up and backed away from the car. Okay. New plan. I'd go into the station, ask for a jump, or hell, just any kind of help. There had to be someone else around. The other car. The sedan on the side of the building. I jogged around the corner. The beige sedan was gone. Not just moved, gone. No tire marks. No dust trail. Just a clean patch of ground where it had been. The sky above me had gone oddly colorless. Pale gray. No clouds. Just blank. I turned toward the woods behind the station, hoping for a house, a light, anything. Then the front door bell rang. Ding. 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 Over and over. Like someone was running in and out. I crept up to the window. The old man was back, standing behind the counter. His face still. His hands resting on the register. But his eyes were wrong now. Pupilless. Just white. Like they'd been rolled back, and stayed there. And he wasn't alone. Behind him, through the small break room door, I saw 3 other people. All facing away. Standing perfectly still. One of them had their arms hanging at impossible angles. One had no shirt, but long, fresh cuts down his back. The third one was smiling. Broad. Mechanical. Unmoving. The old man's mouth opened slowly. Too slowly. And from his throat I heard her voice again, the one from the calls. You were told not to come here. I stepped back, nearly tripping. My car keys were in my hand before I realized I'd moved. I sprinted for the car, ducked in, slammed the door, and locked it. The engine still wouldn't turn. Then, the pump clicked. I looked in the mirror. Pump 1. The handle was off the cradle. It was hanging there, swaying slowly. But I hadn't touched it since I filled up. I watched it swing, then freeze. Like someone had grabbed it midair. Then my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. A man's voice now. Low. Calm. You don't leave. Not yet. You still owe us. My hands trembled. Owe you what? No answer. Just a click. Then headlights behind me. Another car. A dark SUV. Rolling in slowly. Tires silent. Windows tinted. I opened the door and ran. Didn't look back. Didn't try the road. I took the flashlight and bolted for the woods. Branches ripped at my arms and face, but I didn't care. I ran until I couldn't hear the pumps. Or the bell. Or that voice in my ear. Just the sound of my own heartbeat, and wind through dry trees. Eventually, I found a power line. Followed it. 2 hours later, I hit a gas station that wasn't abandoned. Lit. Loud. Real. I called my brother again. This time, he answered. Dude, he said. Where've you been? You hung up earlier, and I thought you were screwing around. I never got through, I said, voice hoarse. He paused. Yes, you did. You said something weird. Like, don't try to leave. She offered me coffee and said, don't worry, someone's always coming to get you. That was 3 days ago. I don't normally pick up hitchhikers. But that morning, somewhere along Route 19 in southern West Virginia, I saw a man standing beside a dead Chevy with the hood popped. He was holding a gas can and wearing a high-vis vest, waving like he'd been there for hours. It was early, cold, and the road was empty in both directions. I figured I'd help him out, drop him at the next service station. That next station was 30 miles farther than I expected. The road curved endlessly through trees and forgotten farmland, no other traffic, no shoulder wide enough to turn around. Just when I was starting to think the guy had lied, I saw the faded Texaco sign dangling on rusted bolts. One pump. Cracked gravel. An old red and white cinderblock building that leans slightly to one side. The kind of place they don't put on maps anymore. I let the guy out. He gave me a nod and walked toward the building. I watched him go, then noticed a little sign by the window. Free coffee while you wait. I figured, why not? I needed a break before the next stretch. Inside, it smelled like old wood and burnt toast. The woman behind the counter looked maybe 70, but with clear eyes and a bright smile. She offered me a cup of coffee before I even spoke. You heading south? She asked. Eventually, I said. Just helping that guy out. He needed gas. Her smile didn't waver. Someone's always coming to get you, she said like it was a compliment. I didn't know what she meant, but I gave a polite nod and sipped the coffee. It tasted fine, hot, bitter, standard. The guy I'd picked up came back in a few minutes later. Except something was off. He didn't acknowledge me. Didn't even glance my way. He walked right past, up a narrow hallway behind the counter, and disappeared into the back. I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Hey, I said finally. Is there a bathroom? She pointed to the same hallway. Down the hall. Left door. The hallway was narrow. Dim, no light switch. As I passed the first door, I heard something, low, wet breathing. I paused, but didn't knock. The second door was the bathroom. I went in, closed the door, locked it. That's when I saw the writing scratched into the mirror. Don't drink the coffee. My stomach turned. The cup in my hand hit the edge of the sink. Spilled. I stared at my reflection, feeling suddenly dizzy. The air in the bathroom was stale. Hot. Claustrophobic. I splashed water on my face and opened the door to get out. The hallway was dark now. The overhead bulb was gone. Just an empty socket and a faint red glow from under the first door. I ran back toward the front. But the main room wasn't the same. The windows had been boarded. The open sign was off. And the woman? She was sitting behind the counter, completely still. Eyes closed. Breathing shallow. I stepped closer. "Ma'am?" Her head twitched once, then slowly turned toward me. Eyes still closed. And she said it again. "Don't worry. Someone's always coming to get you." Only this time, it sounded like a promise. I backed away from the counter, trying to keep my footsteps quiet. The old woman didn't move. Her head stayed tilted, her breathing soft, lips barely parted like she was still mumbling the same sentence to herself. "Someone's always coming to get you." I didn't know what the hell that meant. I didn't care. I needed to get out. The front door had no handle on the inside now. Just smooth metal. I ran my hands over it, looking for a lock, a latch, anything. Nothing. The glass was reinforced with chicken wire, smeared over with something dark. Outside, the gravel lot was still. Silent. The man I'd picked up was nowhere to be seen. I tried the hallway again. Maybe there was a back exit. As I passed the first door, the one I'd heard breathing behind, I heard it again. Wet. Rhythmic. Like someone gasping slowly through a soaked cloth. Then, scraping. From the floor. I kept moving. At the end of the hall was a steel door with a faded red sticker. Staff only. It was ajar. I pushed it open. It led to a stairwell. Not down into a basement, but up. 2 flights. No windows. Just a single bulb burning above the top landing. The air smelled like copper and ammonia. Still dizzy from the coffee, I held onto the rail and climbed. Every step felt like it took a little more out of me. At the top, a hallway stretched left and right, like a motel floor. Doors on both sides. Closed. Plain. And on each door, a number scratched into the wood. Not painted. Carved. I walked slowly. Listening. Behind one I heard crying. A woman. Behind another, scratching. Fast and frantic. The third door was open. Inside was a cot. A single light bulb hanging from a cord. A bucket. And a TV. An old box model. Powered on. Static screen. And in front of it a man. Sitting cross-legged. Eyes wide open. Staring. He didn't blink. I whispered, "Hey!" No reaction. I stepped closer. He looked familiar. Gray hoodie. Dirty jeans. My stomach dropped. It was the guy I'd picked up. Same man. He didn't even twitch. Just kept staring into the static, his lips slightly parted. I touched his shoulder. He fell sideways. Rigid. Like a mannequin. I backed out of the room, heart pounding. Then I heard footsteps, fast, coming up the stairs behind me. I turned and ran. Door to door, trying each one. Locked. 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 The last one opened. I dove inside, slammed it shut, locked the bolt. I pressed my back to the wall, listening. The footsteps stopped outside. Then, knocking. Not pounding. Just slow, even knocks. 3 times. I didn't answer. A woman's voice called through. "Room service." Soft. Pleasant. Familiar. The old woman. I stayed silent. Eventually, the footsteps moved on. I waited what felt like an hour before cracking the door. The hallway was empty. I crept back toward the stairwell. Down. The station below was dark now. The lights all dead. The windows fully boarded. No exit. No phone. But the free coffee sign still glowed. In green. I found the window where I'd parked. My car was still there. But it was different. Covered in dust. A flat tire. The windshield cracked. Like it had been sitting there for weeks. I kicked at the boards. Nothing budged. But I saw something outside. Movement. A new car was pulling in. Another traveler. Another. Someone. The gravel crunched beneath their tires. I watched a man step out, stretch his legs, look around. He was reading the sign. He was coming inside. And behind me, from somewhere deeper in the station, I heard the voice again. From many mouths at once. Someone's always coming to get you. And I realized I wasn't trapped in a gas station. I was part of it now. The mechanic said I was lucky to break down right there. Funny thing is, I never told him what was wrong. It happened just outside of Flagstaff. I was on my way back from a week-long hiking trip, just me, the road, and the long stretch of I-40 ahead. My plan was to hit Phoenix by nightfall, but around noon, my check engine light flicked on. Not flashing. Just solid. I didn't panic. My car was older, sure, but it ran fine. I figured maybe the gas cap was loose, or it was one of those ignore it for a week issues. But 20 minutes later, the temperature gauge spiked, and the steering got stiff. Then came the smoke. I pulled off onto the shoulder, rolled to a stop, and killed the engine before it died on me. The whole area was empty, just flat desert, barbed wire, and two-lane blacktops stretching forever. That's when I noticed the sign. Faded white paint. Block letters, station 66 to 2 miles ahead. Not a brand I recognized. But I didn't have options. I started walking. The heat was punishing, but exactly 1.8 miles later, I saw it, a squat cement building beside two tall pumps, both painted cherry red. A classic-looking station, like something from the 50s. One service bay. A big roll-up door propped open. No cars. As I approached, a man stepped out of the bay wiping his hands. Mid-40s, tan skin, grease-stained coveralls. He smiled wide. "You picked a hell of a place to break down," he said. "Good timing, though. I just cleared out the lift." I hadn't said anything yet. "Yeah," I managed. "Overheated. Engine light came on. Didn't want to risk driving." He nodded. "Bring it in. I'll tow you up, no charge. Happens all the time out here." I blinked. "How'd you know I had my car with me?" His smile faltered a little. "You walked in from the east. No way you came from that way on foot." "Fair enough." He grabbed keys from a pegboard and hopped into a battered tow truck. Told me to wait inside. The inside was clean. Too clean. White tile floors. A vending machine with no labels on the buttons. A stack of outdated Field and Stream magazines on a low table. A single fan spinning slow overhead. No music. No AC hum. Just silence and the faint whine of wind outside. After about 15 minutes, he rolled the car into the bay and waved me over. "Take a look." The hood was up. Steam still rising. But I couldn't see anything out of place. He pointed to the fan belt. "Cracked. That's why the temp spiked. Easy fix." Then he tapped the radiator. "You've also got a leak. Could be bad if it empties on the road. How long would it take to fix both?" "Not long. A couple hours, give or take. You can hang out inside. Get a soda. Take a nap." Something about the way he said it felt practiced. I went back inside and sat. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. No update. No sound of tools. No clanging. Just the hum of that fan and the feeling that I wasn't alone in the room, even though I was. I checked my phone. Full battery. No signal. I got up and walked to the door. Tried to step outside. It was locked. From the outside. That's when I looked closer at the vending machine. Behind the dark plastic cover, there was only one row of cans. They all had the same label. Sleep Aid 150 milligrams. Not soda. Not snacks. Pills. And beside the counter sat a guest book. Open to a page covered in names. All written in the same handwriting. I backed away from the guest book. The names looked normal at first: Sarah Miller, Tyler K. D. R. Morgan, but the handwriting never changed. Same slope. Same pressure. Even the spacing was identical. One person had written every single name. And judging by the date column, there was a new guest every few days. I turned toward the glass door again. Tapped it lightly. No response. Outside, the sun was still blazing, casting long shadows behind the station. My car sat half in, half out of the bay. The hood was down now. But I hadn't heard him close it. I knocked louder. Nothing. Then, from the back hallway, behind a half-closed door, I heard a voice. Low. Gritty. Talking to someone? Don't want another one too soon. Last guy's still out back. Then laughter. Dry and tired. I froze. Slid behind the vending machine, heart thudding. My bag was still by the waiting area. My keys. My wallet. My phone. Still no signal. The back door creaked. Boots on tile. He walked in slowly, eyes sweeping the room. I held my breath. His gaze passed right over the vending machine. Then he walked to the counter and picked up something, a notebook. Flipped a few pages. Smiled. Then he said it. Soft, like it was just a normal part of his routine. Time to sign in. He turned toward my bag. I didn't wait. I bolted. Straight into the hallway. Past an open office. A tiny bathroom. Then, a heavy steel door marked Employees Only. I should have kept running. But I opened it. It led to a set of concrete steps. Down. I hesitated. Then heard the front door open again. He'd found my bag. Hey! He called out. Where you going? I didn't answer. Just ran down the stairs and shut the door behind me. Darkness swallowed me. The air was cold. Stale. Metallic. I clicked on my phone flashlight. A hallway. Long low ceilings. Fluorescent lights above, dead. Doors lined each side. Steel, no windows. Most were locked. But one stood ajar. I pushed it open. It was a small room. Cement floor. A drain in the middle. And in the corner, something moved. I raised my light. It was a man. Thin. Hollow-eyed. Maybe late 20s. Wrapped in a dirty blanket, lips cracked, skin pale. He flinched when he saw me. Are you real? He whispered. I nodded slowly. He pulled himself up. Don't drink anything. Don't eat anything. He laces it all. I helped him up. He stumbled, weak. How long have you been down here? I asked. Too long, he croaked. I stopped for gas. We moved together. Room to room. 3 more were empty. One had a mattress. Another had old clothes stacked in a corner. Like someone had been cycling people through. Like this place was a system. Then I heard it. Footsteps above. The creak of that vending machine being moved. We had seconds. We found a door at the far end of the hall, chained shut from the inside. The padlock was rusty. I pulled a tire iron from the storage rack. Slammed it against the chain. Once. Twice. Snap. We pushed out into sunlight. The exit led to the back lot, gravel, flat, surrounded by desert. A tarp covered something large near the fence. We didn't look. We ran. There was a dirt trail beyond the fence. Power lines. We followed them. No cars. No voices. Eventually, hours later, we found a ranger's shack. Empty, but it had a landline. We called the cops. Told them everything. But when they got to Station 66, the bay was empty. The building was locked. No guest book. No vending machine. No mechanic. Like it had all been packed up and rolled out in the time it took us to run. They didn't find the basement door. Didn't even believe it existed. Said the place had been closed since 2004. Owner died. Property condemned. They let us go, after checking us out at the hospital. The other man never gave me his real name. And me? I've started driving with a full tank. Always. Because out there, off old highways, past mile markers no one monitors anymore. There are still places that look like help. But they're just traps with signage. And someone's always keeping the books.